country living once more, near Lakeville, Connecticut.
I found this house and lived there for a while. Huge, great, big house. And I would have been happy to stay there, but then that wasn't working.
But for a time, he created a vivid new career as a TV controversialist.
He became quite in demand because people like David Susskind and people who had these in-depth late-night talk shows, which we don't have anymore, unfortunately, would, you know, have Artie on. Artie would be the outspoken kind of guy. Oh, yes, absolutely wonderful.
Privately, writing was taking more of his time, and the library in his latter-day home near Los Angeles swelled. So it was a surprise when suddenly a big band appeared in New England under the Artie Shaw name, with his blessing, and Dick Johnson as the featured soloist.
And every night he stayed with the band a little. I rehearsed the band, and I had to play in front of him every night. Needless to say, I put hours and hours and hours and hours back to learn the tunes. And then he'd tell me sometimes, hey, you don't have to play what I played. There's certain things you have to. I mean, you can't change Stardust unless you're someplace and you're going to explain that you're going to, because that's probably one of the best solos naturally of all time.
I led it for a while, just to make sure that they were following certain standards I have. They still lapse. But compared to what's going on out there, mostly, it's pretty good.
I never thought that I would see Artie Shaw standing in front of a big band, but he had this great band out of Boston. Had a singer named Darryl Sherman singing with the band.
He was wonderful. He was wonderful and very demanding, as he should be. It was a very new band. Particularly, you know, he had the best saxophone section in the business, and he was whipping it into shape. And it was quite a learning experience just to watch that happen.
Some nights the band inspired a wonderful public reaction.
It was 10 minutes, and I was on 10 serious minutes of a standing O. So yeah, he felt pretty good about that. So he came over to me, Dick, and put his arm around me, and he says, man, I was almost proud of the band tonight. He almost. But it's very tough to him to give like a full-fledged compliment, but I forgive him for that.
Artie returned to his writing desk.
He's published now 3 books. One of the best memoirs ever to come out of show business, The Trouble with Cinderella, a great title. A very good roman à clef called I Love You, I Hate You, Drop Dead, which is based on some celebrities, including William Saroyan and some other people in that circle. A lot of people complain it's too much clef and not enough roman, but it's a very well-written sequence of 3 stories. Which was very popular in its day. I mean, I think it was a bestseller, and it probably hasn't been in print in a long time. And then he published a book that nobody has seen, a collection of short stories, including one near masterpiece called Snow White in Harlem, in which he really goes into the idea of being a teenage white guy, grew up in New Haven, Connecticut, studying in Harlem with Willie the Lion Smith. And it's a beautifully rendered story. The book that everybody really wants to see of Shaw's is the novel, which he described to me as a jazz Jean-Christophe. Only Shaw would remember Jean-Christophe. But when I saw him in the early 90s, the manuscript was over 1,000 pages. And apparently it's his obsession. It's what wakes him up in the morning. It's what he keeps working on, and I hope we'll see it.
I decided that I would write a true account, like Romain Rolland did, about the composer, called Jean-Christophe. I'd just write a book called Albie Snow. Albie Snow looked very much like Artie Shaw. It was Al Snow. Before that, it was Albert Wisnowski. Took the middle syllable, which happened to me. So that's how it works. You make a fictional character, you can do anything. And the nice thing about that is you can do things you would have done if you could have thought of it. And in fiction, you're free. You don't have to stay with facts. So when I look back at what I went through, I can make it better, more interesting, more dramatic, whatever. The book is pretty interesting, if I can ever finish it.
There's one chapter, for example, which he has done entirely without punctuation, relying upon the weight and rhythm, inner rhythm of words and phrases to kind of punctuate itself. You know, in a way, it's the very opposite of Celine, for example, who used ellipses as ways of letting a thought breathe, but very often brought the reader to a grinding halt instead. But Artie's way of doing this shows that he is as much a master of the printed word and the cadence of the printed word as he was of the cadence of an instrumental solo.
As a player, Artie Shaw was an educator, and now in his 90s, he still is.
He told me I have to read Lafcadio Hearn and a book called The Crock of Gold, I think, by someone named James Stevens. I had to go to rare booksellers to find these books. And these were the books that clearly turned him on as a writer in the 1920s and 1930s and 1940s. And he seemed to be that kind of person who always has something interesting to talk about. There's a new book, there's a new idea, you must think of this. He makes all these wild connections. I mean, the way his brain works, just from A to Z, he can bring it all together.
People always asking the difference between me and Goodman and me and so on. I say the big difference is I'm alive. All of them are dead.
The child in the tree heard perfection in a dreamy melody, and in pursuing it through 10 decades of life, became one of the remarkable men of our age.
You've got an instrument there, it's made of wood, and you got keys and holes in it, and you try to play it. You're trying to manipulate these clumsy keys and with your throat and your muscles and your air, your, what they call an embouchure, trying to make something happen that never happened before. It doesn't happen too often. When it does, it beats anything. It beats sex, it beats food, beats anything. And you never forget it. So that's what it is.